Okay. All right, so we're back on recording, just to kind of recap. So as Lily, when she was doing her presentation this morning, there was two parts that she kind of addressed you again as the teacher and other as the student. So as far as the first part, I'm going to be addressing you guys as teachers just as far as professional development on our sake, how to make our classes better, okay? The main thing that we've been focusing on this year is writing. And I know when we think about writing, we think that that's just solely English classes, okay? Which we already know that that's not the case. Okay, we're not going to be focusing as far as across the board. You know, we want to make sure that our students are comprehending what is being taught. Okay, and the best way to really do that is through the writing. Okay, because we know that when we do worksheets, when we do dittos, when we do the fill in the blanks, so often our students just Google the answer, copy and paste the word, and they move on to the next question. So there's really no opportunity for comprehension there. Okay, so it's our job as teachers, okay, to be teaching literacy. And again, that's all of our responsibilities here, whether we're an English teacher, social studies teacher, science teacher, that is our responsibility to make sure that our students are comprehending what's being taught. Okay, we don't want them just to regurgitate material that was given to them, okay, and then move on to the next chapter. Okay, if not, again, we're not doing our job. Okay, so like Lily was talking about this morning, we talked about closed reading. That basically is the opportunity to give the student a passage, okay, and we give them the opportunity to annotate. So we're going to build off of that. Okay, so after our students annotate, which we're going to be practicing, okay, as students in a science classroom, okay, we're going to be working on what's called comparing and contrasting, which I'm sure we're all familiar with those terms and what that means. Okay, and the reason that we're going to be focusing on that is because there's so much research behind the fact that when students successfully, which is the key word, compare and contrast, there's student achievement associated to that. Does anyone have an idea why? Because they're understanding it, exactly, they're comprehending it. There's no way for them to go and Google that answer. Okay, it's giving them that opportunity that, again, through their writing, based on their annotations, okay, that they're coming back, okay, and giving what they think, what they learned, okay? And like I said, we're going to be doing a practice with that as if we were in a biology classroom. So some of the benefits when it comes to comparing and contrasting, again, first thing is obviously we know the student is comprehending it. They're generating that answer on their own, okay? Second thing as well, that if we're talking about that, they're going to be comparing to text. So like, those that were here earlier for Lily's presentation, okay, we were comparing a poem from Walt Whitman from a setting in the 1860s, I believe, right? Okay, so what would be an example, okay, of something that we could do in a classroom, and I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to think about it, that we can do to compare against that. Like if we were going to do a lesson about comparing and contrasting, what would be, and I'm not saying that you have to give me the name of a poet, but what would be a good idea to kind of compare against that?
Another writer for me in French.
That's awesome. Okay, so if you're talking about language.
So the point of view of two different writers at the same time.
Awesome, great job. What else?
Or a contemporary writer.
Or a contemporary writer. Okay, maybe you want to compare it to something that they see on social media. What else?
Comparing another American author at the time period, like Frederick Douglass.
Awesome.
Comparing Antoine Van Lono to Robert Hooke.
Awesome, which we're going to be talking about the cell phase today and different parts of the cells. Awesome.
A rapper.
A rapper, cool, okay? So at the end of the day, again, you want to make it something relatable, but those were all great examples, good, okay? And again, as far as just getting student achievement, which with Enriquez's idea, that's wonderful, okay? If you give a student a rap song, if they were going to pull up a song from Lil Wayne, okay, and they see that their teacher is giving this to them, maybe, again, with the words bleeped out, obviously, okay? But I'm sure if you gave it to a student with the words bleeped out, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, we're actually going to be annotating a song that I'm familiar with. Okay, so what does that do? That increase student engagement, and again, you're relating it, okay, to Common Core standards, okay? Which again, talking about the new lesson plan format, okay, we have to be obviously adding all our standards and adding all these details, okay, across the board, okay, for science, history, English, there is this commonality, okay, of comparing and contrasting, okay, so that again, that just makes it even more applicable to all of us, okay, so even in the arts, PE, whatever the case is, okay, it's all applicable. Okay, so today we're going to be pretending now that we're in that biology class that I'm referring to. So just put your mindset into that. I just asked the behavior that we try to keep it at the age that we are. Okay. So as far as the objective for today, why are plant and animal cells different? Okay, and I know again, teacher perspective, this might be going back to high school, college years. Okay, but even just thinking plants and animals. Okay, what are some differences that you can think of off the top of your head?
Cells have walls, animal cells do.
Awesome. Okay, we're actually going to be talking about that today as well. Okay, that plant cells have walls, and animal cells do not. What else?
General complexity.
Okay, general complexity, good. Depending the type of cell that we're referring to, some might be more complex than others.
Don't they have different shapes also?
Different shapes, so we're going to talk about that as well.
Plants also have chloroplasts.
Okay, plants have chloroplasts, very good. Okay, if you think SpongeBob, photosynthesis. Okay, good job. Okay, different functions, awesome. Okay, which again, we're going to be reading some text based on that. So again, as my freshman students, okay, about a week or two ago, we started this new chapter. We started the first chapter with the cell theory, which again, we have a picture of all our scientists there. We talked about these scientists, what we didn't care about them, what the purpose of them was. Okay, the different discoveries that when it came to Hooke coming up with the idea of the cell because he looked at a piece of cork, okay, and he called them a cell because he actually thought that they looked like a prison cell, unfortunately, okay? And through all these different scientists, Leeuwenhoek, Schwann, okay, that they came up with this concept that plants and animals had their own structures. And again, you're talking about 17th, 18th century that these discoveries were made. The tools that they used microscopes, that again, over time that they started to develop. And we talked about how important that was. Okay, after that, we talked about some of the structures that we found in animal cells. Okay, and we even took the opportunity to annotate because I know there were some of us in the class that were confused with some of the words. Like we saw the term semi-permeable, that we broke down with the word semi meant that kind of meant somewhat. Encloses, that meant that it surrounds the cell. Okay, just so that we understood what these terms meant. Okay, and as far as our objective today, okay, that I have that posted here just so that we don't forget. Okay, we're going to be identifying and explaining certain functions that we find unique just in plant cells. And then finally, once we break that down, okay, we're going to compare and contrast plant and animal cells so that we can see what the differences are between them. So that we can come up with our assessment at that point based on that information. Okay, so if you can open your packet, okay, to the second page that says plant cells. Okay, and you can follow along with me. What we're going to be doing right now, I'm just going to be reading it to you. Just listen, follow along. Okay, and as you're reading this, okay, I want you to try to find one unique characteristic that we find to plant cells. Okay, I also want you to underline any words that you find quote unquote tricky, that you're not sure what it may mean. Okay, so just listen along for now. There is a major difference between the cells of plants and animals. It is that plant cells are surrounded by a cell wall made of a lattice of cellulose strands. Plant cells are generally larger than the animal cells. There are many parts to a plant cell. Around each plant cell is a cell wall. The cell wall keeps plants upright. The cell wall is made of a tough substance. It's called cellulose. Cellulose helps the cell maintain its shape. Plant cells possess a rigid cell wall. Since they do, they are mostly square or rectangular in shape. They cannot change shape. They cannot change size. They are easily distinguished from animal cells. Beneath the cell wall is a thin layer. It's called the cell membrane. The cell membrane is selectively permeable. It only allows some of the things to enter the cell. It only allows some things to leave the cell. The membrane is made from a double layers of fat chemicals that are called lipids. The head of the lipid is called hydrophilic. This means that it mixes with water and substances on each side of the cell. The tail is hydrophobic. It is repelled by water. It forms a barrier. The barrier helps keep the cell's contents inside of it. So, as we read this, did anyone figure out what that one unique characteristic was? And you could just shout it out. It's a cell wall. Awesome. But I know someone mentioned that earlier as we were talking about that, so good job. Were there any words that you found tricky, that you weren't sure what they meant? So that we can clarify. Mary Ann.
Permeable?
Permeable. Awesome. That's a new word that's kind of a toughie.
Hydrophilic.
By the way, disclaimer, you guys already know this, okay? When it comes to me writing words on the board, I often misspell them. Okay, so please make sure that you're keeping an eye out for that. We said permeable, what was the other word? Hydrophilic.
Hydrophobic. Lattice. Lattice. Hydrophilic has one element. Yeah. Lattice.
Okay, I misspelled that word, I'm sorry. Okay, thanks for keeping an eye out for that. So permeable, okay, let's look back on the paragraph, how that's used. Okay, that is in line, help me out guys, what line is that in? Seven. Okay, it is called the cell membrane. The cell membrane is selectively permeable. It only allows some things to enter the cell. So when you think permeable, okay, what does that word kind of sound like? What do we think it's probably associated with?
Permeate.
Permeate, which again is usually associated with what state of matter? Liquid. Awesome. Okay, so when we talk about things that are permeable, okay, usually you're talking about that it has the ability to take in liquid of some sort. Okay, hydrophilic. Okay, this first part here, hydro. What is that word usually associated with?
Water.
Water. Okay, philic. Okay, usually that means that it's able to take it in. So water loving.
Yeah.
Okay.
Feeling.
Feeling. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Hydro, again, we see that in the third word referring to water. Phobic, which again, if anyone has a phobia, usually that means they are fearful. Awesome. Okay. And then lattice, okay, I can't think of off the top of my head any root word from that, but when we talk about lattice, usually we're talking about some type of weave format.
Yeah, like lateral.
Ladder, thank you, that's a good one. Okay. Awesome, good team effort there. Okay. Now on your own, and I will be walking around to make sure that we're on task. Okay, I'd like you to circle the organelles and underline their function. Once you have done this, I'm going to give you like a minute or two. Okay? Write freely. Okay? So again, okay, under this part. Okay? Write freely about an example of how these structures help plants. Oh, organelle, we didn't talk about that. I apologize. So review from last week in case we forgot. Okay? Organelle, that is a part of a cell. Okay, so an example of an organelle could be the nucleus, the cell membrane. We forgot to put that as a tricky word.
Yeah. Organelle. Cell part. Organelles are the parts of the cell.
I'm keeping it so it makes you uncomfortable, Taylor. Paper. Thank you, Bob. Taylor's not working right now, Taylor.
I didn't know, well, no, because I was circling words and I don't recognize as part of it today. I didn't know we had to circle after the fact. How did you keep your eyes on your people? No. I just circled.
Organelle is a part of the cell.
Stating your name.
We're over here in our lane with only 2 organelles.
Cellulose is cellulose.
Neither is tail.
Not really. Better make sure you don't need before we'll present.
Correct. It's not just one single word, there's different organelles in that cell.
Every time it's so long.
You guys are doing a great job so far.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. I'll give you guys a couple seconds with that. If we didn't get to finish, that's okay. We'll have time at the end of class, so please don't yell at me that you need more time. I was waiting for the miss coming back. A poly presentation. Alright, so let's talk about what we've circled so far. And again, if we didn't get to finish, guys, it's okay. This is considered part of notes, which teacher had. I'll explain what I'm referring to once we finish this lesson. Okay? So what were some of the organelles that you circled?
Wall.
Cell wall. Cell wall, awesome. Okay, and what was the function of the cell wall?
Keep plants upright.
Okay, keep plants upright. Excellent, good job. Okay, any other organelle that you found there?
Cell membrane.
Cell membrane, very good. Okay, what was the function of that?
Help the cell maintain permeability.
The cell membrane, yes.
It only allows certain things.
So as far as the function, it allows certain things to come in and out. Excellent, good job. We'll be talking about in the next chapters what exactly is it that comes in and out of the cell. Okay, so hold those questions. Write freely about an example of how these structures help plants. So someone kind of mentioned that. Okay, so how would a cell wall, which we read that in the paragraph, help plants? What was the main thing that we read there? It keeps it upright, good. Okay, it gives it its form, excellent. Okay, so if we think plants, okay, and we were kind of talking about that earlier, and I'm just trying to see where our prior knowledge is at. Okay, if plants need to be upright to obtain what?
Sunlight.
Sunlight. Okay, so that would be an example of an adaptation, okay, that plants have, so that it's able to get sunlight so that it can perform photosynthesis. Good job. Okay, so what I want to work on now, okay, and again, this is all still considered notes, okay, based on what we've read, and I'm going to put our cheat sheet up of the animal cells, okay, that we annotated last week, okay, so you'll see that they're in the TV, okay. As far as plant cells, okay, based on our readings, okay, what did we see the shape of plant cells were?
Square.
Square, excellent. Okay, and in our notes last week, I asked you guys to add this, okay, but typically animal cells, okay, they're gonna have a round shape. Good job. I'm glad you guys remember that, okay? Surrounding structure, what surrounds a plant cell? Based on, again, the reading we did today.
Cell wall.
Cell wall, very good. And then for animal cells, what surrounds it? And again, take a peek at our notes there. Cell membrane. Tanner, you're on the ball today. Good job. So we were able now, just going back to our objectives, if you guys can take a peek there at the board. Okay, so far we've been able to identify and explain different organelles that we find within plant cells. Okay, so now we're going to look at as far as comparing and contrasting plant and animal cells. Okay, so I'd like you to flip the page in your packet. Okay, and we're going to complete what's called a top hat organizer. Okay, and just to explain the setup of this. Okay, unlike a Venn diagram, because I personally am not a big fan of the Venn diagram, I don't know, and I'm putting the teacher hat on now. I hate it in the middle. Okay, that you can never fit like your answers there.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lily and I found this organizer. Okay, and again, we just found that it was a lot easier. So if you notice again on the top it says differences, in this case plant and animal cells, you would literally like just list bullet points, okay, under each topic, okay, and then the similarities on the bottom. Okay, which again, with the typical Venn diagram, you had this weird football shape that you could never fit anything in there. Okay, for the sake of time, we're just gonna kind of fast forward through this, but just so you get the gist of it. And hints that I know Lily mentioned graphic organizers earlier. Okay, again, really user-friendly, easy to use here. Okay, so this would be the assessment part of it. Again, we're not going to do this right now just for the sake of time. Okay, and the reason I clarify that, and I kind of insinuated that earlier. Okay, everything that we've just done, the top hat organizer, the graphic organizer that we just did here. Okay, the free write. Okay, those are all examples of notes or formative assessments. Okay, we're not asking you guys, okay, to use each part of that as an assessment, okay? And I know I confided this with Lily that me personally, when it comes to writing, okay, I sometimes get a little intimidated with that just because it's a lot to grade, okay? But as far as writing, and I've tried to kind of test it out little by little. I teach the skills kids for biology. I try to at least have them answer in paragraph form. Okay, or at least give me 3 or 4 sentences, because again, typically when you give them a fill in the blank, the first thing that they're going to do is go on their iPad, go on Quizlet, and try to just plug in the answer. which again defeats the purpose of comprehension, okay? Or defeats the whole concept of literacy. We want our students to understand this. Okay, so this would be an example assessment for this lesson. Okay, could the soul survive without a vacuole? You could also plug in, again, different organelles at this point if we're talking about this lesson. Okay, and then pick one organelle and think about how it's similar to one part of the body. Okay, you can have them answer this, okay, in about 3 or 4 sentences. And again, you could obviously alter that to, depending on your class and the content that you're covering. Okay, but again, all this, they were going to be able to answer that based on what was covered in class. Okay, and notice again, although I was reading off, there wasn't necessarily a lecture. This was kind of as far as a conversation happening between the student and the teacher. Okay, and for the most part, I know maybe I was probably a little nervous presenting this, okay, but there was a dialogue, and I think for the most part, you guys were engaged. Okay, which is obviously what we want to make sure is happening with our students in class, that they're engaged. Okay, so as far as reflection, now teacher hat back on. Okay, I'd like you guys, based on everything that was covered today, I want you to list 2 things that you learned in the training sessions today. So the lesson or the training session that I just completed now and Lily's. Okay, and then how do you see yourself using the closed reading and the compare and contrast in your classroom? So take a second, that's on the last page of your packet. Just to kind of reflect on what was discussed.